Welcome to Global News on Signature TV. I am Barry Kumo Ado. In the headlines, Dangote Refinery offers 10 naira refund on petrol to customers. President Tinubu to inaugurate National Disaster Relief Fund Committee. Stocks soar on Pakistan Stock Exchange following India's ceasefire. And Ancelotti to leave Real Madrid and take over Brazil national team. Details shortly.
We are local.
We are right now with the wife of the man that was...
Why the main market is in chaos? People are...
We are national.
Those in support of this motion as amended, say aye. Aye.
We have taken the view by default.
We are international.
Israeli airstrikes.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.
The Dangote Refinery has effected another reduction in the ex-gantry price of its premium motor spirit below the publicly announced 835 naira per litre. The refinery has reduced its price to 825 naira per litre for its customers through a rebate of 10 naira after successful loading of products at the refinery. Sources say marketers are still paying 835 naira per litre for products, but receive a 10 naira refund after loading and evacuating them from the refinery. The covered price adjustment has allowed its customers and marketers to retail the product at a lower band of 830 to 835 naira, outpricing imported marketers and private depot owners. Last month, the Dangote Refinery effected a price reduction twice within the space of a week, crashing its gantry price by 5 naira from 880 naira to 835 naira per litre. This followed the restart and full implementation of a naira for crude agreement with local refineries after an earlier suspension. Efforts to get an official reaction from Dangote spokesperson Anthony Chiejina on the price reduction were futile. Suspended Governor of Rivers State, Siminalayi Fubara, is telling his supporters not to adopt a confrontational approach in seeking for peace in Rivers State. Fubara gave the advice while speaking at a night of tribute organized by the Rivers Elders Forum in honor of a late elder statesman, Chief Edwin Clark, held in Port Harcourt. He noted that some of the remarks and actions of his supporters were unnecessary and contrary to his personal principles of pursuing peace in the midst of a political crisis in the state. Fubara said that he now enjoys peace of mind and appears even healthier since stepping aside, emphasized the importance of drawing inspiration from the life and values of Chief Clark, particularly his commitment to justice, peace, unity, selfless service, and statesmanship. The Administrator of Rivers State, retired Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ibas, has called for collaboration between security agencies, community stakeholders, and residents to combat various criminal activities in the state. Ibas, who spoke during a town hall security stakeholders meeting held in Opobo Town, Opobo Nkora local government area, decried the high rate of sea piracy, illegal oil bunkering, and oil vandalism. Sole Administrator was represented by the River State Commissioner of Police, Olugbenga Dekboju, emphasized the need for collective efforts to safeguard critical government assets and infrastructure. He further assured residents that the government will prioritize health care, education, road rehabilitation, and other welfare concerns to enhance living standards in the area. In his address, the Administrator of Opobo Nkora local government area, Frederick Apiafe, highlighted the unique security challenges in the area to include sea piracy and theft of fishing equipment, illegal oil bunkering, and unauthorized vigilante operations. Similar meetings were held at Omoko, the headquarters of Ogbaegbe Mandoni local government area, and Ungo in Andoni local government area. The Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, has elected Professor Chris Piona, consultant psychiatrist and Dean of Student Affairs at the University of Jos, as its new national president. Professor Piona succeeds Professor Victor Osodeke, Professor of Soil Science at the Michael Okpara University of Agriculture, Umudike, Abia State, who served as the union president since 2021. A leadership transition was ratified at the 23rd National Delegates Congress of the Union held on Sunday in Benin, Edo State, where members from various branches across the country convened to chart a new course for the academic body. Professor Piona, known for his firm advocacy for the welfare of university lecturers and reforms in Nigeria's higher education sector, previously served as ASU's vice president. His emergence comes at a time when the union continues to engage the federal government on issues of funding, staff welfare, and autonomy of public universities. Benue State University BSU Makurdi has debunked reports of missing 2 billion naira in the institution. The Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Professor Simon Teva, debunked the reports on Monday during a chat with journalists in Makurdi. He described the allegations as baseless and misleading. Clarification followed a legal action initiated by the institution's director of ICT against Henry Ibia over alleged defamation, cyber-stalking, and injurious falsehood. Ibia's report had claimed that the university lost 2 billion naira due to a crash ICT portal, leading to the purported suspension of the ICT director for investigations. Ibia was detained at the Benue State Police Command on April 25, 2025, before being arraigned in court and remanded at the Makurdi Correctional Center. After nearly a week in custody, he was granted bail, with the case adjourned to July 2025. Teva addressed the allegations at a press briefing on Monday. He acknowledged resistance to fee payments by students, attributing the development to economic hardship and cultural perceptions equating fees with taxation. Teva noted that the administration's cautious approach to enforcement of payment of fees by students is to prevent unrest. He clarified that the committee is reviewing fee compliance, but stressed that will be part of the process. The chairman of Gwe West local government area in Benue State, Tosa Victor, has ordered a dusk-to-dawn curfew to curb rising insecurity in the area. In a statement issued on Sunday, Victor said a curfew, which begins at 6:30 p.m. daily, takes immediate effect and applies to all movement into and out of the local government. The council boss explained that the measure is temporary and will be subject to review based on improvements in the security situation. The decision comes in the wake of renewed violence in parts of Benue State, particularly following a series of deadly attacks on Friday, May 9, 2025, in the neighboring communities of Ajilamo and Jato Aka. At least 9 people were killed when suspected headsmen launched coordinated assaults in both villages. In Jato Aka, over 20 armed attackers invaded the area, killing 6 residents and touching several homes. The violence later spread to Ayilamo, where 3 more people, including a livestock guard, were reportedly murdered. The federal government has appointed a 12-member team of senior advocates of Nigeria, led by former Attorney General Akin Olujimi, to defend the state of emergency declared in Rivers State following a suit by 11 PDP governors. President Bola Tinubu suspended Governor Siminalayi Fubara as deputy at the State House of Assembly on March 18, 2025, citing security concerns, and appointed a sole administrator. National Assembly approved the action via voice vote. Challenging the move, governors of 11 PDP states filed a suit at the Supreme Court, questioned the president's constitutional authority to suspend elected officials under a state of emergency. They're seeking a declaration that such actions violate federalism and the 1999 Constitution and want the emergency rule nullified. In response, the Attorney General of the Federation, through a preliminary objection, urged the court to dismiss the case, arguing it lacks jurisdiction, presents no legal dispute, and is speculative. A National Security Advisor, Madam Nu Ribadu, has called for a shift in Nigeria's anti-corruption strategy from reactive enforcement to preemptive measures. Speaking at the night of Sikiru Adetona Professorial Lecture in Ogun State, Ribadu was represented by DSS Director General Oluwatosin Ajayi, emphasized that systemic and attitudinal changes are essential to curb corruption. He warned that corruption continues to undermine national development and security, urging a collective societal effort to tackle it. Ribadu also reported progress in the fight against insurgency, noting that over 160,000 Boko Haram fighters have surrendered, with many reintegrated into society. He praised about Sikiru Adetona, in whose honor the event was held, as a courageous advocate for good governance. Up ahead, Gadi says Boko Haram seizing military weapons worth trillions. Nigerian nurses urge federal government to prioritize health workforce funding. Stay with us.
We are local.
We are right now with the wife of the man that was
Why the main market is in chaos. People are
We are national.
Those in support of this motion as amended, say aye. Aye.
we have taken the vote by default.
We are international.
Israeli airstrikes.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.
A member of the House of Representatives, Yusuf Adamu Gadi, has claimed that Boko Haram insurgents have seized weapons and military assets worth trillions of naira during attacks on military bases across Nigeria's northeast region. Gadi made a statement while contributing to a motion moved by Ahmed Satomi from Borno State. The motion addressed the recent fire outbreak at a military arms depot in Giwa Barracks, Maiduguri, and increasing attacks by Boko Haram in Borno and Yobe states. According to Gadi, the scale of destruction being inflicted by insurgents on military equipment is unprecedented. He warned that failure to take swift and decisive action would have dire consequences, especially for elected leaders. Gadi noted that the National Assembly had allocated significant funds for the purchase of over 40 combat vehicles and other weapons for the military, amounting to trillions of naira to ensure the protection of citizens. The lawmaker cautioned that continued negligence from the government and its security apparatus would erode public trust, posing a major threat to political leadership and national stability. President Bola Tinubu would on Tuesday inaugurate the National Disaster Relief Fund Committee at the Council Chambers of the State House. Committee, chaired by Heirs Holdings Chairman Tony Elumelu, would officially begin its mandate to establish a nationwide framework for disaster response and climate resilience in Nigeria. The fund, which would involve participation from both public and private sector stakeholders, will serve as a central repository for the federal government's emergency response resources for disaster management, complementing the efforts already being undertaken by Nigeria's existing emergency management agencies. High-level committee would also include the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, the Minister of Aviation, the Minister of Water Resources, the Minister of Environment, and the Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. President Bola Tinubu has bagged the Lifetime African Achievement Award from the Millennium Excellence Foundation based in Ghana. Tinubu, while receiving the award, commended the patron of the foundation, Otumfua Osei Tutu II Ashantiene, for the invitation extended to him and the success of the event, put together by the foundation. The president, represented by the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Bianca Odumegwu-Ojukwu, received the award during the 25th anniversary of the Millennium Excellence Prize in Kumasi, Ghana. He charged a young generation of Africans to rise with courage towards contributing their quota to make the African continent a more united, peaceful, and prosperous one. He emphasized the need for such contribution to be carried out in the area of science, technology, education, governance, entrepreneurship, and arts. He further called on Africans to always work closely together in shaping a shared destiny, while urging event organizers to continue to inspire excellence, uphold values of leadership with service, and invest in the youth to foster collaboration across borders. The National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives has called on the federal government to prioritize health workforce financing. It also called for the engagement of over 115,000 graduate nurses eager to contribute their skills and expertise to the nation's healthcare system. The president of the association, Haruna Maman, made a remark at an event to commemorate the International Day of the Midwife at the commencement of the 2025 International Nurses Week. Maman said this year's event, with the theme workforce, called for immediate funding and workable solutions to safeguard nurses and midwives from emotional, mental, and physical difficulties. He noted that nurses must confront issues of negligence and attitude in patient care that has so far tarnished the image of a profession. The Central Bank of Nigeria has warned Nigerians against engaging with individuals and groups peddling fictitious contracts, loans, and financial grants purportedly issued or endorsed by the Apex Bank. In a statement issued on Monday by CBN's Acting Director of Corporate Communications, Akama Sidi Ali, the Apex Bank said its attention had once again been drawn to the activities of fraudsters falsely claiming to represent or act on behalf of a bank. It warned that the bank does not award contracts or disburse funds through unsolicited channels such as emails, phone calls, SMS, WhatsApp, or any social media platform. It also does not request payment of fees in exchange for such benefits, nor does it engage intermediaries or third parties to offer financial services or opportunities to the public. The bank reaffirmed its commitment to safeguarding the financial interest of Nigerians, said it was working closely with security agencies to investigate and curb fraudulent activities. The World Bank has said that Nigeria's economy recorded its fastest growth in about a decade in 2024, driven by a strong fourth quarter and an improved fiscal position. During a presentation on Monday, the bank's lead economist for Nigeria, Alex Sienat, said Nigeria's economy grew by 4.6% year-on-year in the fourth quarter of 2024. Quoting high-frequency business indicators, it said the economy continued to expand in early 2025. The bank launched the Nigeria Development Update Report in Abuja on Monday. The report is a biannual in-depth examination of select economic and policy issues and an analysis of Nigeria's development challenges. Nigeria's annual inflation rate dropped to 23.18% in February 2025, its lowest level since June 2023, from 24.48% in January. Meanwhile, food inflation eased to 23.51%, marking its lowest rate since September 2022, compared to 26.08% in the previous month. The core inflation, which excludes the prices of volatile agricultural products and energy, quickened to 24.43% from 23.01% in the previous month. On a monthly basis, consumer prices rose by 3.90% in March, accelerating from 2.04% in February. The World Bank expects Nigeria's economy to grow by 3.6% this year. Country's foreign exchange reforms have created a market-reflective, unified and stable exchange rate, allowing the central bank to rebuild official reserves, now exceeding $37 billion, Senate said. Senate said government revenue rose by 4.5% of GDP last year, a remarkable achievement driven by removal of foreign exchange subsidies, improved tax administration, and higher remittances. Nigeria's tanker activity surged as major ports in Lagos and Warri actively received cargoes on Friday. 5 tankers delivered over 194,000 metric tons of petroleum and crude cargo, as forest rates exceed 1,640 USD, and marketers face competitive pricing and pressure. Earlier reports alleged disputes between oil marketers and the Dangote refinery over pricing. For a statement by Dangote that some cabals who are major marketers and traders were fighting against the survival of the refinery. The Executive Secretary of the Depot and Petroleum Products Marketers Association of Nigeria, Olufemi Adewole, said marketers only want to keep their businesses running by importing fuel. Adewole dismissed allegations of a cabal in the sector, but admitted the existence of vested interest among private depot owners, who he said have invested billions of naira over the years to keep fuel flowing to Nigerians. A DAPMAN official alleged that the Dangote refinery, despite its massive 650,000 barrel capacity, has not been able to meet even the current reduced local consumption needs. He argued that private depot owners continue to bear the bulk of a fuel distribution burden across the country. The development was after the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited and Dangote Petroleum Refinery and Petroleums pledged to deepen collaboration aimed at ensuring Nigeria's energy security and advancing shared prosperity for Nigerians. Still to come, Britain's Starmer tightens migration rules. German President calls on Netanyahu to avoid decision on Israeli Premier's arrest in Berlin. These and more after the break.
Every second, every minute, every day, news is breaking. Events occur and there are new developments. At Signature TV, we follow these stories objectively, bringing all sides without bias, explaining the complex issues, breaking down the numbers, and investigating the issues behind the news. Anywhere and everywhere, near or far, wherever the news is, we will be there. Signature TV. News in your pocket.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced a new salvo of measures to toughen up Britain's migration system on Monday, saying many immigrants would have to wait longer before getting the status they need to claim welfare. Starmer's government is under pressure to counter the rise in popularity of Nigel Farage's right-wing anti-immigration reform UK party. Under the changes, automatic settlement and citizenship for people who move to Britain would apply after 10 years, up from 5 years now, although highly skilled workers such as nurses, doctors, engineers, and AI experts will be fast-tracked. The government also said it plans to raise English language requirements to include all adult dependents who would have to show a basic understanding of English. It said a change would help integration and reduce the risk of exploitation. Net immigration, the number of people coming to Britain minus the number living, hit a record 906,000 in the year to June 2023, up from 184,000 who arrived in the same period during 2019, when Britain was still in the EU. Employers groups are worried that tightening the rules on foreign workers would make it harder for companies to fill vacancies.
Every area of the immigration system, work, family and study, will be tightened up so we have more control. Skill requirements raised to degree level. English language requirements across all routes, including for dependents. The time it takes to acquire settled status extended from 5 years to 10. And enforcement tougher than ever, because fair rules must be followed, conducted on a country that voted for control. Party conference, taking back control, is a Labour argument. Now, make no mistake, this plan means migration will fall. That's a promise. But I want to be very clear on this. If we do need to take further steps, if we do need to do more to release pressure on housing and our public services, then mark my words, we will.
The United States and China said on Monday they have agreed a deal to slash reciprocal tariffs for now, as the world's two biggest economies seek to end a trade war that has disrupted the global outlook and set financial markets on edge. Speaking after talks with China's officials in Geneva, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told reporters the two sides had agreed on a 90-day pause on measures and that tariffs will come down by over 100% points to 10%. Bessent was speaking alongside U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer after the weekend talks in which both sides had hailed progress on narrowing differences. The Geneva meetings were the first face-to-face interactions between senior U.S. and Chinese economic officials since U.S. President Donald Trump returned to power and launched a global tariff blitz, imposing particularly hefty duties on China. China on Monday said it supports all efforts conducive to peace in Ukraine and hopes all parties can reach a fair, lasting and binding peace agreement. The remarks from a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson at a regular press conference were in response to a question about a new Russian proposal of direct talks with Ukraine to end the war.
On the Ukrainian crisis, China's position has always been clear. We support all efforts committed to peace, and hope that the relevant parties will continue to reach a fair, lasting, and binding peace agreement acceptable to all parties through dialogue and negotiation, so as to ultimately achieve a political solution to the Ukrainian crisis.
Ukrainian authorities said Russian attacks against Ukraine continued on Monday, including an overnight assault using more than 100 drones, despite a ceasefire proposed by Europe and Ukraine that Russia did not agree to abide by. The leaders of four major European powers traveled to Kyiv on Saturday and demanded an unconditional 30-day ceasefire from Monday. Russian President Vladimir Putin implicitly rejecting the offer, instead proposed direct Russia-Ukraine talks in Istanbul that it said could potentially lead to a ceasefire. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Sunday he will be ready to meet Vladimir Putin for talks in Istanbul on Thursday, after U.S. President Donald Trump told him to agree to an offer of talks with Russia immediately. European Defence Commissioner Andrius Kubilius on Monday called for more integration between European and Ukrainian defence industries. Speaking at the Defence Industry Forum, Kubilius said that an EU-Ukraine task force will convene for the first time on Monday to assist integration of defence industries to facilitate development of joint projects or joint procurement processes. Commissioner, a former Lithuanian Prime Minister, said Europe can learn from Ukraine's innovative industry, pointing to advances with drones and artificial intelligence.
Today is also an important day because today we announce the creation of the interinstitutional EU-Ukraine task force. And today Ukrainian and European experts of that group will convene for their very first meeting to assist integration of our defence industries, to facilitate development of joint projects or joint procurement processes. And in the future, when Europe will need to take the whole responsibility for the defence of the European continent, Ukraine will be the most important part of the new European security architecture.
German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephol said in London on Monday, Russia needs to adhere to a truce before any direct peace talks between Russia and Ukraine can take place in Turkey.
This is a crucial week in which we can take a step forward towards peace negotiations. In our view, and this is an opinion that I also share with my European colleagues, the prerequisite for this is that there must first be a ceasefire. This has been clearly articulated. Ukraine is ready for this. President Zelensky has taken a big step forward, and the expectation of President Putin and Russia is that they will now follow suit. Germany now expects a ceasefire from Russia and then a willingness to negotiate. We will discuss this again here today. We will also take a look at the current situation with our Ukrainian colleague. I am quite sure the European position is clear. It will make it clear that we can have momentum, that Europe can finally return to a situation where peace can prevail.
The president of Germany on Monday said he hoped Chancellor Friedrich Merz and Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu were smart enough to avoid a situation where Berlin would have to decide whether an international arrest warrant will be executed in Germany against an Israeli prime minister. Merz said in February he had invited Netanyahu to visit and would find a way for him to do so without being arrested under a warrant by the International Criminal Court. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, who holds a likely ceremonial role, was speaking during a visit by Israeli counterpart Isaac Herzog to mark 60 years of diplomatic relations between the two countries. Herzog called on the international community to help with its new plan to distribute aid directly to the people of Gaza and cut out Palestinian group Hamas from the process.
As far as the second question addressed to me is concerned, this is a question that is first and foremost directed at the German government, whether the Israeli Prime Minister will be invited or not. But if you ask me, I assume and hope that both sides are smart enough that there will never be a decision as to whether an international arrest warrant will be executed here in Germany against an Israeli Prime Minister.
The PKK's disbandment decision, which Turkey on Monday said was of historic importance, does not mean the end of the conflict, a German researcher said. Karina Yildirim-Sulexing, who specializes in Kurdish questions at Bonn's International Center for Conflict Studies, said Monday's announcement was an important step, but meant a balancing act for Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan. She further highlights that it depends a lot how the decision by PKK now is taken up by different actors in Turkey, and that Erdogan needed to find compromises with the Kurdish movement. Turkey will take necessary measures to ensure smooth progress towards a terror-free country after the Kurdistan Workers' Party announced it is dissolving the presidency's communications director, said on Monday.
It's a big step in this process between the Turkish government and the Kurdish movement to find a solution. And it's not the end of the conflict. So this is a really long existing conflict for decades. The Kurdish movement has been active for more rights and political decision-making ability for the Kurds in Turkey. So this is definitely not yet the end of the conflict, but it's a really important step towards political dialogue and towards solutions that must be found for this conflict at some point.
Residents living in Pakistan's capital Islamabad expressed relief on Monday as a ceasefire with India held 2 days after it came into effect. Saturday's ceasefire announced by US President Donald Trump followed 4 days of intense firing between the two sides and diplomacy and pressure from Washington. Islamabad's Shah Fasil Mosque was bustling with worshippers and members of the public on Monday, with some residents attributing the peace and safety to the Pakistani army.
Initially, we were afraid that something bad might happen to us, but the Pakistan Army did a very good job and assured us that we didn't need to be afraid. So with the Pakistan Army, we have nothing to fear. There was a lot of fear here in Islamabad, and our family members in the village were also very afraid. My family lives in one of the border villages, and some areas were evacuated. Today, thank God, the hard work of the Pakistan Army has brought us peace. Their kindness and efforts are with all of us. They have taken strong action, and because of that, for the past 2 days, we've felt completely safe. I've spoken to my family, who were deeply worried, and today, thank God, things have settled. There is no more danger.
India and Pakistan have delayed until Monday evening talks between their military operation chiefs to discuss next steps after the ceasefire. The Indian Army said as New Delhi reopened airports and shares rose in the nuclear-armed rivals. The war on Hamas must not stop and aid should not be let into Gaza, Israel's far-right police minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said on Monday amid speculation in Israel that a deal to release a U.S.-Israeli hostage could lead to a new ceasefire. In broadcast remarks from the Israeli parliament, Ben-Gvir said defeating Hamas was a top goal of the war and the only way for Israel to return its hostages from Gaza. Israeli forces invaded Gaza in retaliation for the Hamas-led assault on Israel in October 2023 that killed 1,200 people and saw 251 taken hostage, according to Israeli tallies. Since then, more than 52,000 Palestinians have been killed, Palestinian health authorities say, and large swaths of the enclave have been devastated.
Total defeat of Hamas is the ultimate goal of this bloody campaign we're in. It is the only way to bring all our hostages home. Mr. Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, we must not stop. President Trump had already given you the backing, he had already told you that the gates of hell can open on Gaza. And we are procrastinating, and missing out. We must stop missing out, we must stop procrastinating. We must launch a decisive attack, occupy all of the Gaza Strip and encourage voluntary migration of Gazans to countries around the world.
The murder of U.S.-Israeli hostage Eden Alexander Yal Alexander arrived in Rome, Israel on Monday ahead of reuniting with her son, who is set to be released later in the day. Hamas will release Israeli-American hostage Eden Alexander from Gaza on Monday, Palestinian militant group said, although Israel's prime minister said there will be no ceasefire and plans for an intensified military campaign would continue. Fighting will pause to allow for Alexander's safe passage, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said. 3 Palestinians in Gaza told Reuters early on Monday afternoon they had been calm since midday, with no sound of drones or warplanes. The Kremlin said on Monday that Russian President Vladimir Putin was serious about trying to find peace at talks he has proposed in Turkey, but its spokesman said it could say no more about the talks after Ukraine demanded the Kremlin chief attend. Putin on Sunday proposed direct talks with Ukraine aimed at ending the war, and after U.S. President Donald Trump publicly told Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to accept. Zelensky said it would, but that Putin should attend in person. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters that they are committed to a serious search for ways of a long-term peaceful settlement, referencing the failed 2022 talks between Russia and Ukraine. Peskov said many leaders had welcomed Putin's approach, cited positive reactions from U.S. President Donald Trump, Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, as well as from countries in the BRICS group and from countries in the former Soviet Union. Putin and Zelensky have not met since December 2019 and make no secret of their contempt for each other. Putin's proposal for direct talks with Ukraine came hours after major European powers demanded on Saturday in Kyiv that Putin agree to an unconditional 30-day ceasefire or face massive new sanctions. Germany's government said on Monday that European countries will start preparing new sanctions on Russia unless the Kremlin by the end of Monday starts abiding by a 30-day ceasefire. Pope Leo, in its first address to the media, called on Monday for an end to a polarizing war of words made of partisan and ideological attacks and not give space to fanaticism and hatred. Speaking to thousands of members of the media from around the world who covered his election and the death of his predecessor, Leo also called for the release of reporters jailed for doing their jobs. He added artificial intelligence ought to be used with responsibility and discernment.
We must say no to the war of words and images. We must reject the paradigm of war. Let me, therefore, reiterate today the Church's solidarity with journalists who are in prison for seeking and reporting the truth, while also asking for their release. Today, one of the most important challenges is to promote communication that can bring us out of the Tower of Babel, in which we sometimes find ourselves, out of the confusion of loveless languages that are often ideological or partisan. In looking at how technology is developing, this mission becomes ever more necessary. I am thinking in particular of artificial intelligence, with its immense potential, which nevertheless requires responsibility and discernment in order to ensure that it can be used for the good of all, so that it can benefit all of humanity. For this reason, I repeat to you today the invitation made by Pope Francis in his message for this year's World Day of Social Communications. Let us disarm communication of all prejudice and resentment, fanaticism and even hatred. Let us free it from aggression. We do not need loud, forceful communication.
Voting was underway in the Philippines on Monday for a nominally low-key midterm election that is showcasing an emotionally charged proxy battle between President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and ally-turned-foe Vice President Sara Duterte. Duterte and Marcos are not on the ballot for more than 18,000 positions, but have been campaigning aggressively for their slates of candidates as a bitter rivalry dominates a contest that could influence the future dynamic of power in a country of 110 million people. At stake for Marcos is his policy agenda, his legacy and influence over his succession in 2028, while Duterte's political survival could ride on the vote, with an impeachment trial looming that could kill any future hopes of becoming president and following in the footsteps of her father, Rodrigo Duterte.
I am voting for the people who can help, the local officials who can help the regular people and those who won't make things difficult. I hope the election will turn out well and that our lives will be better, like in the fields of agriculture, transportation, and our buildings.
I voted for the administration candidates because they are doing their jobs well, but of course they can't perfect everything.
Local media reported that voting, which runs from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m., was generally proceeding as expected, aside from some delays caused by glitches in the vote counting machines. A Paris court is to hand out a verdict in a sexual assault case against French actor Gerald Depardieu on Tuesday. French state prosecutor recommended an 18-month suspended jail sentence and 20,000 euros fine in March as the trial came to a close. Actor Gerald Depardieu told the court on the third day of the trial that he did not consider placing a hand on a person's but sexual assault, and that some women were too easily shocked but denied assault. A towering figure of French cinema, Depardieu, 76, has faced a growing number of sexual assault allegations in recent years, which has put a spotlight on how women are treated in the movie industry. Depardieu has denied wrongdoing, and this is the first case over which he is standing trial. He is accused of sexually assaulting 2 women on a film set in 2021. His lawyer, Jeremy Assos, has opted for an aggressive line of defense, saying the accusations were false and investigators biased and wanting to bring Depardieu down. Let's take a quick break.
We are local.
We are right now with the wife of the man that was...
Why the main market is in chaos. People are...
We are national.
Those in support of this motion as amended, say aye. Aye.
We have taken the vote by default.
We are international.
Israeli airstrikes.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.
Carlos Ancelotti will become Brazil manager after leaving Real Madrid at the end of the season, Brazilian FA said on Monday. Ancelotti has enjoyed 4 hugely successful years in his second tenure at the Spanish Giants, but they are set to finish this season without a trophy. Indian batter Virat Kohli announced his retirement from Test cricket on Monday, bringing down the curtain on a sparkling career in the longest format, just days after Captain Rohit Sharma did the same. Kohli, who scored 30 centuries and 9,230 runs at an average of 46.85 over the course of 123 tests. After making his debut in 2011, is expected to still be available for selection for one-day internationals. 36-year-old had quit 20 internationals immediately after India won the second 20 overs World Cup trophy in West Indies last year. Kohli and Rohit who announced his departure from the format on May 7, a disappointing showings in a 3-1 Test series defeat to Australia in January, in which India relinquished the Border Gavaskar Trophy for the first time in a decade. India's next Test assignment is a 5-match series in England from June 20. Kohli will be remembered for his spell as Test captain between 2014 and 2022. He led India in 68 Test matches, of which he won 40 and lost 17 to become the country's most successful captain in the format and sit fourth in a list of skippers with the most Test victories. Under him, India reached the final of the inaugural World Test Championship in 2021, where they lost to New Zealand. It was also part of a team that lost to the second World Test Championship final to Australia in 2023.
The mood is great. Everyone's very relaxed, very confident. And look, all the teams worked hard to get to these moments, and now, whoever plays better on the day, we know that things are as simple or as complicated as that. So,
just heard a few words right now about mutual admiration and respect between two countries, and I couldn't agree more that you spoke of number 2 spot. I think if we had to share our number 1 spot with any other team, that will be New Zealand.
That's the news this hour. I am Barry Kumo. Thanking you very much for watching. Up next is Signature Evening. Stay with us.
artificial intelligence actually help us to imbue a program, either a program, a project in form of technology that will help us achieve success, become more efficient in any of our operation, whether in farm, because I noticed there's a kind of an AI instrument that I noticed I watched in a video where you see that AI is being used in collaboration with technology, solar technology, to scare off animals that normally attack the farm. You know, it will blow bugle, make different sound, you know, even release a gunshot sound, but these are not real gunshots. But when maybe a monkey or that attack maize, that harvest maize and all that came to that very farm, you will censor that very monkey and begin to make those or birds are perching on the crops, so it will sense them and begin to make those sound, and they will scare them away and they will never come to those farms. It's also is goes a way to show that AI and technology is a hallmark of our development. It's very going to enhance our development, but the only caution is that we need as well to protect the human race, protect the human privacy, protect, you know, while we are implementing the AI and technology in any spheres of life. So if we must grow, we must go with technology, we must go with AI. That's the current thing about it there.
Artificial intelligence, it's come to stay, right? Whether you like it or not, it's really helping drive a lot of sectors, technology, medicine, you know, agriculture, and all that. So it's something that has come to stay. And the only reservation that we have about it is that it's going to take a lot of valid jobs from humans, right? And I think that's the only concern. But you wouldn't compare the benefits, right? Because globally, AI drives
Good evening. It is Monday, another evening with you on Signature Evening from Signature TV. Before I say my name, I'm just going to highlight that we're going to have an interesting topic today, which is the ascendancy of Pope Leo XIV. And to have this conversation, we are going to have this interview with an interreligious affairs expert who is Reverend Ugochukwu Ifeanyichukwu. My name is Quincy Rowland, and of course, I am not doing this alone.
Ngozi Kamba is my name, and thanks for joining us on Signature Evening Monday edition. And right here, we will be bringing you all the regulars. Apart from the discussion segment, we'll be having the autograph, we'll be having the chat box, as well as Fashionista. Thank you for joining us. After the break, we shall return to bring you the very first discussion segment, the ascendancy of Pope Leo XIV, with Reverend Ifeanyichukwu Ugochukwu. Stay tuned.
Every second, every minute, every day, news is breaking. Events occur and there are new developments. At Signature TV, we follow these stories objectively, bringing all sides without bias, explaining the complex issues, breaking down the numbers, and investigating the issues behind the news. Anywhere and everywhere, near or far, wherever the news is, we will be there. Signature TV. News in your pocket.
Cardinal Robert Prevost, a little-known missionary from Chicago, was elected in a surprise choice to be the new leader of the Catholic Church on Thursday, May 8, 2025, becoming the first United States Pope and taking the name Leo XIV. Aged 69 and originally from Chicago, Prevost has spent most of his career as a missionary in Peru and became a cardinal only in 2023. He has given few media interviews and rarely speaks in public. Leo becomes the 267th Catholic Pope after the death last month of Pope Francis, who was the first Latin American Pope and had led the Church for 12 years and widely sought to open the state institution up to the modern world. Francis enacted a range of reforms and allowed debate on divisive issues such as women's ordination and better inclusion of LGBT Catholics. And our guest this evening on the ascendancy of Pope Leo XIV is an interreligious affairs expert, Reverend Ugochukwu Ifeanyichukwu. Reverend, nice to have you on the show this evening.
Good evening to you, Ngozi, I call you NG, and Queen Roland.
Good evening, Reverend.
Good evening to Enugu State and Nigeria at large. Good evening, and I'm happy to be your guest this evening.
We are glad to have you, sir. Good evening. Okay, let's just dive right into the ascendancy of Pope Leo XIV. What exactly would you say are the key historical and political factors leading up to his the election of Pope Leo XIV?
Leo XIV, as you have done the expose, is the office is occupied now is the head of the Catholic Church worldwide. Pope Leo XIV is also the head of government because he is the head of state in the Vatican City. So he is leading about 1.3 billion plus people all over the world, those that are Catholics. And whether you like it or yes, he is the head of the Christendom world over. So his ascendance into onto the throne was made possible by the votes cast, and when they had the conclave on Thursday, on the 8th of May, he emerged. The cardinals that voted were about 133. There were 135, then having 2 absentee. So they came together to elect him. He is literally unknown to us that are in Nigeria here. He is not the Arinzes of this world. You know, Cardinal Arinze is known even all over the world, because most countries are visited. Once you mention you're a Nigerian, they ask you about if you know Arinze and the place of Father Michael Iwenetansi. So the new Pope, born 69 years ago in a little village of Illinois in Chicago, the United States of America, and originally from Peru, as your expose have said, meaning that he was born in 1955 and was ordained a Catholic priest on the 19th of June 1982. Made the bishop December 12th, 2024, and became a cardinal September 30th, 2023. You could see how short his ascendancy has become, because he was only made a cardinal by the late Pope Francis, the one he has just succeeded. And little or nothing was known about him, but when he was made a bishop, he chose the slogan or the mantra, "For in him who is one, we are one." We could remember Pope John Paul II, who is now a saint, with his his own mantra, or the acronym that he's been known for. He said he is the servant of the servants of God, Serva Servatorum Dei. So anybody who is made a Catholic bishop in the Catholic Church always has his emblem, his coat of arms, his anthem. So they choose those things depending on where their focus is, what their mission for the church is. So they go into themselves and bring out what we call it the philosophy of life, and they will now use it as a roadmap in whatever they are going to achieve within their diocese. Maybe eventually become a cardinal, and now he's a pope. So going by what he said, "For in him who is one, we are one." You could define Pope Leo the 14th, whose name is Robert Francis Pervout. You know, so he will tell you a lot about what he holds for the church. He believes in the unism of the church, given that Christ came and died for us all, and came for the unification of the human race, to draw all men back to God. That is why he came to redeem mankind. So going by that, you will look at it that his brother cardinals must have looked at his antecedents. Remember that he is the person in charge of overseeing the screening of those whose name have been sent to become bishops. Because in the Catholic Church, we say that the bishop is the church. So all other priests, everything happening within the diocese, the local church, the bishop spearheads it. So if he has served the church in this critical position, I think his brother cardinals, whom some of them must have been elevated to the status of cardinal, know him through and through. Because it is not a mean feat from among your equals you emerge. because they have known you over time. They have studied your antecedents, and let us not forget that I think he is becoming the first Augustinian Pope, because the papacy has been, have been taken over literally by the Jesuit congregation in the Catholic Church. But for an Augustinian, that's why his name, you attach OSA, the Order of St. Augustine, the Augustine of Hippo, the one we know his mother to be St. Monica. So if you go through that, he started from a humble background, because Augustinians are known as monks, but they are called active monks. Active monks in the sense that they go out to interact. They are not those that are in the contemplative life, but they live between contemplative and active life. So he's a missionary by training.
Reverend Ugochukwu.
Yes.
Is the congregation similar? I mean, they have the style of his own congregation. Is it the same, or I don't know if it's congregation or missionary? I don't know what it's called, but is it the same with that of the past Pope Francis? Because it's looking like. Go on.
He is an Augustinian priest. In Catholic Church, we have those we call the diocesans, for the benefit of those that are not Catholics, or those that are Catholics that don't know there are differences in the priest that they see around. One distinguished mark that you will know is the pattern of their cassock. But we have diocesans, those are allegiance is to their bishop, the bishop of their respective dioceses, while the missionaries are being headed by a lay person can found a congregation. That's the missionary order, both male or female. They can be religious brothers that live a consecrated life. Then you also have those in the missionary circle that they are being headed not by bishops, but they are being ordained by bishops, but they are under the tutelage of a superior general, which he attended that particular height. The highest office holding position, apart from being the founder of a particular congregation, the Pope Leo the 14th, when he was Robert Francis, who has attended the highest position in the order of the Augustinians, becoming the superior general worldwide. And that was made him, he came to Nigeria. Historians ran to his to their archives, and they found out that he visited Nigeria as a superior general of the Augustinians in the year 2016. That was when he came to Jos Plateau State and visited the Augustinians that are staying there. That is their headquarters in Nigeria. So he is not a diocesan priest. That's why I have made an allusion that he has a humble beginning and a life that is devoid of wealth and affluence. Because when you are a missionary, you live a life of selflessness and poverty.
What I'm actually looking at is the differences in their various congregation. When you said that his own congregation does not look after material wealth, it reminds one of Pope Francis. I just wanted to know if they have similarities.
Yes, there are similarities in the congregations, because they take the vow of, they have 3 significant vows. That's promises that they make, apart from the individual congregational vows that they make, the promises that they make to keep them within the framework and the vision of the founder of that particular congregation. But if not, they have what we call universal vow. The church universal vow as poverty, chastity, and obedience. That is where it comes that a priest will not be married. The chastity that comes in, the vow of obedience, and living in poverty, living a very minimal, ostentatious lifestyle. But those that are in the diocese, their promises are to the bishop, they promise celibacy, they promise obedience to their bishop, and also the province loyalty to their bishop. They are different. There's a sharp contrast between those in the diocese and those in the missionary. The missionaries are seen as the priests of the church. They can serve anywhere in the world. You can be posted anywhere to go and serve. As we could see in the genealogy and the career posting of Oplio the 14th. If we go into that, we see where he served. He had a degree in mathematics. He also studied philosophy. He also had his theological degree in Chicago, in the University of Chicago at the age of 27. Then he studied canon law. Canon law is the law of the church, because before you become a bishop or you become a doctor of the church, you have to study canon law that have different branches. I wouldn't know the branch which he measured now. They have those in the marriage disputes. They have those that defend the church everywhere. And then he obtained that particular canon law degree in the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas in Rome. So those things that made him, stand out and become ready to take this mantle that has taken. And remember that nobody takes the honor upon himself. Like Christ will say, it is only bestowed by grace. And I think grace has found out Peter, Robert Francis, so to say.
Okay,
but
so
the sharp contrast between him and the late Pope is that let me make this final submission. The late Pope
your point
Francis,
is made on that. Can we move on, please? Your,
okay.
Your point there is that they look at what we call manifesto in the political world.
Yes.
And
yes.
they feel that what he has is what the world requires at the moment. And
at the moment,
that decides
yes.
who becomes who becomes the Pope.
According
right?
to the needs of the church,
okay.
the universal church.
Still talking historically, this papal election is kind of shrouded in top secrecy. Nobody knows what discussion goes on. Nobody knows, twice in this particular election, black smoke was emitted twice before the white smoke was released, and we all knew another pope has been elected. So I'm not going to question why it is shrouded in secrecy, but I'd like to know if it has always been like that.
Yes, apart from in the early church, those that succeeded Saint Peter the First, that's the head of the apostles. When the emperors held sway in the world during the early medieval period, when the church was ruling, you remember the emperors. So most popes were not clergy. Most popes, it has to be on record that most popes were not clergy. I was going through the history of Pope John the 12th. He ascended the throne of the papacy at the age of 18. A very young man, or a minor, so to say, because his father, Apiclus, galvanized his kitchen cabinet and made sure that his son succeeded him. And he died quite early. Then the son who succeeded him was just barely 18 years. And it was recorded that he is the worst pope that the Catholic Church ever produced. So why is like that is because in the time the bourgeois and the emperors held sway, they appointed the people that will succeed them. It was done with affluence, or there are comparative advantages. But when the church, took back what belongs to them in the medieval period, it became that they have a way of election. That conclave you're seeing is a way of election where you present your manifesto, your resume, And bearing in mind that your brothers, those who are growing with you through the ranks, also know you better than yourself. Like in the seminary, at the end of every academic year, that's what we call a self-examination and evaluation. Your brothers will evaluate you. They will write secret letters about you, how you interact with them, who you are. You only pray that the negative does not outweigh the positive about you. And again, they will ask you those that are your friends from among your brothers to know the kind of life you are living. So your friends points to whom you are, because all the formators know who is who in the seminary. So that is how it is in these elections. It is not like the election of a bishop. A bishop is ordained anyway. We have 3 ordinations in the Catholic Church: the diaconate ordination, the priesthood ordination, and the episcopal ordination. Other ones are selective or elective, so to say. They are not purely a sacramental thing. So the brothers of Pope Leo XIV must have known him over time. Remember also, there are those that are his seniors that also went to that conclave. So whatever happened to the conclave is for you to present your resume. Your brothers will look at it, look at the needs of the church as a president. I don't know what time we have to dive into the needs of the church and what is expected of him at this time. Because other popes in my lifetime, at least I've seen Pope John Paul depart. I've seen Pope Benedict the 16th, and the one that just passed on, Pope Francis. So I'm happy that I'm seeing 4 popes in my own lifetime. Other people are not privileged as such.
Okay, Reverend Ugochukwu, let's look at the political powers. Well, how would you really say the role of external political powers influence these elections, and afterwards, how does it still influence Pope Leo XIV's papacy afterwards?
It's really laughable if you say that there are political hands that accumulated into the election of the Catholic Pope. The answer is a capital
there
no.
Are none? Reverend, are you saying there are none? First, we saw a Trump mimic as Pope, and then the first American Pope ever happened. How would you explain that, really?
No, remember that the Pope that just passed on, Pope Francis, is from even one of the poorest countries in the world. He's an Argentine, Latin America for that matter. So it is not, forget about all this conspiracy theory that is playing out. Whom will even Trump go to meet? Who will even play the politics? The only thing is that, let me tell you how it happens. Before now, Italians, the Europeans has had the upper hand in the number of cardinals. That's how the politics has been playing out in the church. If you talk about politics, the politics plays out like this. The number of cardinals from each continent and each country goes a long way to sway the vote, if you want to talk about conspiracy theory. But clearly the church, does that as the election of St. Matthias after the betrayal of Judas Iscariot. The apostles assembled, the body of Christ prayed, and the Holy Spirit chose who will not betray, who has been either following the trajectory, who knows the story of Jesus Christ, and who can fit into the shoes of replacing the what do you call it now, Judas Iscariot. So the elections have not started today. Like now, Africa have 17 cardinals, Europe have 52. North America has 16. South America has got 23 cardinals. The Oceanian got 4. Central America got 4, making it a total of 133. So if you look at it, if there is politics to be played, Europe would have taken it, and majority of those Europeans that are cardinals are from Italy. The Italians. So the church has gone past through that, over that that politics, internal political wrangling. Remember that before Pope Benedict XVI was elected, it was touted that Arinze was well positioned because of the strategic position he has occupied in the Vatican over time, working closely with Pope John Paul II, who appointed him as a cardinal, and he worked hand in glove. Arinze now worked hand in glove with Pope Benedict XVI. I know one of my mentor, Archbishop Fortunatus Nwachukwu from Abia State, who was the chief protocol officer to the late Pope John Paul, who later became an archbishop and the nuncio to Nicaragua and Brazos, who was elected as an archbishop by the late Pope Benedict. So Nigerians has hitherto worked with them, and later this Pope Francis now chose Bishop Obareke from a Globe diocese to become a cardinal. Remember that also the late Pope Benedict chose an icon, the former Archbishop of Abuja diocese, as a cardinal. So these are some of so most of them will come and look at the imbalance and look at also the church, where the church is growing, and those bishops that are doing well globally, that have a national presentation, by faulting or trying to checkmate what the necessities of government and oppression of their people in their different countries and dioceses, and they now elevate them. So it is really devoid of any political influence, because if you go by that, I don't know the numbers that America or even the United States itself will have to be able to influence it.
It's more political than not. Okay, given that you have to be voted in based on your, let's say your manifesto.
Your resume.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Saint Peter, who the Catholic Church has fashioned the papacy after. I think he was the oldest apostle. Was there a time, or is there a time that the church will begin to consider the election of popes according to the number of years of priesthood, or even episcopal ordination?
According to seniority. Yes,
according to seniority.
No, I think the church has gone past that. Remember that what led Peter to assume the head of the church was the pronouncement of Jesus Christ himself, that you, Peter, upon you I will build the church, and the gate of hell cannot prevail. And I'm giving you the key to the heaven. Whatever you undo on earth is undone in heaven, and whatever you tie here is considered to have been tied in heaven. So remember that particular time the apostles existed, it was not a pope. They don't term it pope per se. It's now that we now brought the acronym. He was the head of the apostles and the head of the church. He was positioned to lead even after the denial, but he quickly found out and had that remorse. Even Judas had remorse, but his own. Remember that in Isaiah it has already been stated that the Son of Man will be betrayed, but that who betide him, through which the Son of Man will be betrayed. The apostle Judas Iscariot later had a second thought, came back and returned the money, but because it had been written in the book of Isaiah, that's why he did not receive that pardon. But you know that the thief on the cross received pardon, and even was the first person to be promised paradise. He was the first person to be promised paradise, even when Christ have not risen from the dead. So what are we talking about is that the office of the papacy is just a religious head. It's just a religious figure that will supervise. And Catholic Church, being a universal church, must have a head, must have a coordination. And the Pope works with a lot of lieutenants that help him in his day-to-day running of the church. He's not the only person. So if you say that there is a time in the church will be having pope according to seniority, why it will not work like that is that the church wouldn't want a time where nobody pronounces knows when somebody will die, but by the human imagination we believe that the young may still have a time to live. Even many conspiracy theorists are saying that why not choose the cardinal that is 64 years. That's the youngest among them. So, but the church doesn't function like that. They might even when they went for the elect pope now, everybody was saying he was even getting old. But the church enjoyed the relative peace and the longevity of the time that Pope John Paul II is the saint now held his office. You could see that the church enjoyed the litany of time. So that is what the church wants to go back. Despite the fact that we don't own life, we don't know who died first. But in the thinking of man, and the other leg of your question is that the church and the human being, as a human, we are political animal, we are social being, and we are political being. And politics started in the church. The world should learn how to play politics from the church. You have not seen where there is rancor and where there is inducement in appointing those elective offices in the church. So, given that background, there is no iota of truth whatsoever that somebody somewhere had an influence. Which kind of influence are you bringing into the Catholic Church? The Catholic Church that is older than you, the Catholic Church that has already dogmatized some of her beliefs. When you talk about dogma, it is already written, just believe it the way it is. That is what dogma means. So, and most of those things are already archived in the annals of history. All those ones they are talking Pentecostal, Protestant, the church has had its own worst moments. Learning by trial and error, and we are getting it. Despite the fact that it is not Uhuru. We are in the world, and as the world is evolving, there's new challenges that the church is facing. That is what makes it imperative that before they elect a pope, they must look at it through and through to make sure that you're coming to oversee the universal church, giving your personal belief, then what you have to offer to the church at the moment.
Okay. Reverend Gochuku, are there certain expectations you have of this new pope? Are there things that you expect to be put in place as he is now the new pope?
A lot, my dear. I don't know whether it's Ngozi or Queen that asked this question. This question is very, very pertinent because, our world is getting mad. What they talk about now, they don't talk about the Gen Zs. We are here when they talk about the millennia. Now you're talking about the Gen Zs. Now some people have started talking about the AI children. So the world is really, since after the departure of the world, we moved to the contemporary philosophy and we left medieval philosophy when the church words we are adhered to. But when some people started questioning the powers of the church, this man, the way they tell us this thing, according to our people in River State, is he not the son of Joseph? Which they even asked Jesus Christ that time. That this person that is doing this thing, is he not the son of Joseph the carpenter? So it is happening in our world today that when the church was holding sway, they were doing their trial and error, some intellectuals started questioning, some school of thought started questioning the powers of the church over them. Because truth be told, the church was even overdoing it. You remember the argument, the word is spherical and the word is round. And that person was killed and he committed anathema. So the church later apologized to the family of the person. You find out that some priests, some church leaders are committing sodomy. Some of them are abusing children. We give it to the late pope that he went out and apologized on behalf of the church. So the church is still having the ship is very, very turbulent now. That we need somebody that is of same mind and has a mind of his own to take critical decisions. And they know the problem that are facing him now, the war in Gaza. The war in Gaza. You remember when you mentioned Israel, you link it to Christianity and the Bible. And it is unfortunate that even the Israeli prime minister is not listening to the church. So the late Pope made his impute. So the onus lies on him. Even Trump that said that within 24 hours he will do this, he will do that. He has done 100 days in office. The war has not been even the one in Ukraine. Yeah, he campaigned and he rode on to become president. It's easier said than done. So the Pope has enormous task to bring peace, at least relative peace in the world. The war in Gaza, people are being killed, massacred, people are homeless. If you come to Nigeria, the church is also interfacing with what is happening in Nigeria, Boko Haram, Christians being killed, communities being ravaged. The church is talking. You remember when the miracle of when the Pope visited our late president, Sani Abacha, and the other Pope came to Sudan and mediated. So there is a lot that the Pope will have to do. The war in Ukraine, the Ukrainians are being killed by the day. Putin is not listening to anyone. We pray he listens to the new Pope. With the collaboration with the new Pope and the Trump, we see the world may have a seemingly relative moment, so to say. But the challenges he faces in the church is enormous. The ordination of women, those who are already priests that want to get married. Like in my expose, I was telling you that those in the missionary, the vow of chastity, he builds them from getting married. So if you say priest will marry, what are those people that have already taken that vow of sacrificing their what do you call, their fidelity and whatever for the church? So you now talk about the growing church, the balkanization of the body of Christ. When you see somebody will wake up one day and say that I'm GO, I am daddy, I am mommy in the church in the name of Christ. So when even you are leading the people with the mandate of Christ, somebody is there deceiving them. Somebody wants to make quick money in the name of the church. Remember that late Pope John Paul II, Saint now, is the person who brought about the ecumenism of the church. That's the coming together of the church. That is why you hardly hear interdenominational again. He's the one that abolished that interdenominational jargon that they were calling that time, because they see interdenomination as balkanizing, dividing Christians. You come to Nigeria, you have PFN, you have CAN, you have all sorts of acronyms, the same Christians. So he has the enormous task on him. It behoves on him to start from somewhere. He can't finish the work.
Okay.
That's the truth about it. He can't finish the work.
Let's revisit something you mentioned in your earlier analysis, and that is about the age of the Pope. Remember when you said that at some point people were even hoping that a younger person, the youngest cardinal becomes the Pope.
From among them.
64.
Yes.
Pope John Paul II became Pope at the age of 58. And
yes.
When he passed, Pope Benedict became Pope at 78. And by the time he was 85, he had to resign. I'm thinking it is the first ever that a Pope was resigning. And he had to resign, citing reasons of incapability to continue running the affairs of the church. Thereafter, Pope Francis was elected the Pope at the age of 77, and now this Pope is 69. Now, looking down in this order, we saw that the Pope John Paul II was the youngest, and he contributed more years and probably made more impact because of the number of years he served. Do you think that age is an added advantage to papacy?
Thank you, NG. Pope, age is not an added advantage to the
age
to becoming a pope. Age is not an added advantage. The church is looking for a head that can galvanize the church, that can lead the church aright, even if it's a day. Somebody can make a tremendous impact. You remember in the Nigerian political space, one man, Awolowo, prayed that he be allowed to be a president for 24 hours. 24 hours is a long time for somebody to make an impact, or even for the person to, expose himself to whom he or she is to you. If you can read the science of body language and tides. So I don't think that age has anything to do with it. The only thing is that the Holy Spirit chooses. The church, operates under the supremacy and the direction of the Holy Spirit. That is why before they ordain you a priest, they say, we and the Holy Spirit, the church and your formators are there just to guide you, to look at you if you are, if you can fit into the life. You shouldn't be a saint. But there are laid down rules, like in the seminary, we have rules and regulation. It's those rules and regulations that form part of your formation. Then your academics. Then you have formators, those who look at you. At the end of the day, they make recommendations and say that this person has certified, just like in the university, in character and in learning. So the Pope and who ascends to the papacy, the church, I made the mention that we are not the owners of life. You might even elect somebody that is 50. The next 2 years, the person is no more. If you want to play the God, you want to help God in defining the mystery of creation, you elect somebody because in your little thinking, the little brain he gave us, you think that you can manipulate and maneuver God. At the end of the day, you find out that God may also try to intervene and show you that he is the Alpha and Omega. So that that Pope John Paul had that grace is totally because of the time and tide and those who were there to elect him at that particular time and what they saw in him. And you will believe with me, that he did not disappoint. That his papacy reign was seamless. It brought about a lot of changes and reforms in the church. And you look at their what they normally write every year, what they call the letter of the Pope. When you look at it, they pass their message from there every year. Every 1st January of every year, the Pope makes a peace admonition to the world, what they call the World Peace Day. The Pope makes a statement on how and what his vision for that particular year will be. So it is neither here nor there. If they found anybody that is really within, maybe the person is 88, the person is 75 or whatever, it depends on what the person has to offer the church at that material time. And once the person can give it out to the church without a lot of distractions, remember that the distractions are there already. Those that are free thinkers, those that want to live their life. You talk about those those who are fighting for women's rights, gay rights, all those people, they are still members of the church. That is why Pope Francis said, open the windows, let fresh air, open the doors and the windows. It's long that the church closed their doors against people that their vision is not aligning with them. Allow them to hear the gospel. There is a time they will be touched to receive the truth. That is one of the core statements of Pope Francis. He said, open the doors, open the windows. That the church has been shrouded in secrecy for a long time. So that people outside will see what is happening in the church. And they come in, don't write away anyone. Don't write out anybody. Let them come in. Perhaps there is a gospel, that a proportion of the Bible that will hit them, and they will turn away from the present life they are living. And I think it's really working. And remember that Pope Benedict, the challenges he faced was many priests were about exiting the cleric life, and many reverend sisters were opting to go out to go and marry, because once you're a priest or once you're a reverend sister and you have done your final profession according to the years of your congregation, first vows, then final vow, before you leave the church, before you leave as a reverend sister or reverend father, the Pope has to sign and sign that document that will let you go free, that you're no longer a priest. And it is not a mean feat to achieve. Rather, when you submit your petition or your application, they will now call you for counseling, trying to find out why you want to exit. Is there challenges? Where are you finding difficult in your ministerial work? They begin to counsel you. Then Pope Benedict said, instead of him signing the letter for people to exit the priesthood and the religious life, that he will now begin to canonize so many people so that people look at them as an example. That was why during his papacy, a lot of people were made saints. A lot of people were elevated from blessed to the people that are venerable, some from venerable to blessed. So these are some of the visions. So each pope at every given time have their challenges, and what helps them in solving the problem is if they quickly discover a way out to steady the ship of that particular moment. So we don't know what the challenges that will rear its head for Pope Leo the 14th, but I tell you, my sisters in the studio, that the challenges, they are already there, especially in this our AI, when the world is moving in the speed of light, that nobody is ready to listen to the gospel. Everybody wants to make it quick. Ritual killing. You heard what happened in Anambra, Okite, and all that. That even people that come to the church go back and practice fetish practices. And the people in the church are also the people that belong to different secret cults. You don't see shrines here and there, but people still practice those occultic things. So it's a whole lot in the church. The church needs prayers. The Pope needs our prayers now. And remember that the Catholic Church is a mirror. Whether you like it or yes, the Catholic Church has set a standard that other denominations, other churches are mimicking. Whatever they are doing, they are looking up to the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church has, over the years, served as the guide, even in the political world and in the religious world. So it is really enormous responsibility for him. If I were him, I wouldn't even accept it. A lot of people will not. I've met some priests who are my lecturers in the seminary who have been called upon to become bishops, and they say they don't want. Because, my dear, it is not easy. It comes with the pressure from the clergy, pressure from the lay people, pressure from even those from among your lieutenants, and pressure from the outside world. So a lot of them don't even. I've even seen some people in my seniors in the seminary. Immediately it is time for them to be ordained, they tell Bishop, please let me take 1 year and take this thing through. It is not so you enter, you don't enter, be that.
Okay.
So they say, let me think it through. So my dear, it is not a bed of roses for Pope Leo the 14th, so to say.
Reverend.
Yes.
The church and the rest of the world will be expecting that Pope Leo the 14th carry on with some of the reforms that Pope Francis initiated, and some of them that he has carried on, I remember you said something about it not being very easy for the church to change their position when you were citing, referring to vow of chastity, for instance, because what will be the fate of those who took the vows before now? But what do you think will be the position of Pope Leo the 14th on secularism and modernization?
Your call credit has been exhausted and your call terminated.
We will at this point conclude this conversation. We are hoping that sometime in the future, Reverend Ugochukwu will be invited to have this chat again with us. We will observe a short break. When we return, we will go over to another subject matter. Thank you for watching.
Every second, every minute, every day, news is breaking. Events occur and there are new developments. At Signature TV, we follow these stories objectively, bringing all sides without bias, explaining the complex issues, breaking down the numbers, and investigating the issues behind the news. Anywhere and everywhere, near or far, wherever the news is, we will be there. Signature TV. News in your pocket.
Welcome back. We are going to have another interview played back for us to watch. We had this interview with Father Stanchu Ilu, still on the ascendancy of Pope Leo XIV. We had this interview just on the day that the Pope was elected and was announced. So stay glued to your screen while we bring you this interview. Welcome back. Of course, a new pope has been elected, and we are going to have a conversation with our guests concerning this development. Good evening and welcome to the show, Mr. Ilu.
Good evening.
Okay, so what does the election of the first American Pope signal about, changing power dynamics within the Catholic Church?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm coming to you from Chicago, where the new Pope was born and raised, and a graduate of the Chicago Catholic Theological Union here, where I also work as an adjunct professor, a visiting professor, and where the students are rejoicing, dancing, and we've been inundated today, just within the hour, by so many journalists. So one is also a statement of intent because the church is growing beyond the European heartland. Pope Leo XIV actually became a Peruvian citizen just, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, American, but he spent most of his life as a missionary, an Augustinian, and a person who I found in the course of the work we did doing theology from the existential peripheries was genuinely interested in what happens to people who are poor, who are forgotten. So he is a pope that will be in the tradition of Pope Francis, but I think he's also, by the choice of the name, Leo, he's also indicating that he will give a lot of time to also deepening the Catholic intellectual foundation and engaging the world at that level of debate, dialogue, and seeking collective wisdom for how to get to the future that we all want to get to a good and bright future for all of humanity.
Okay, just to get, we don't have so much background details on the Pope, and it's been stated that he is not the type to speak so much to the media. What would you have to say about this Pope as a person? I learned that you have, a cordial relationship with him.
Well, I don't think I knew him personally. Our paths had crossed in the course of the work we did doing theology from the existential peripheries. And when he came to his alma mater, Catholic Theological Union, but he is an Augustinian, that is, he belongs to a religious order. So, and Augustinians are people who are raised or who embrace the Augustinian spirituality. This aspect of recognizing, if you look in the life of St. Augustine, the power and presence of God as God present within us and within everyone, that we have to make the spiritual effort so that the life of God in us can grow. God plants the seed in each and every person, and even unbelievers, as we say as Christians, that those who don't accept the Christian faith or those who don't even believe at all in God. Augustine was not a believer himself. He wrote that powerful book, The Confession. So they believe in the spirituality of interiority. That is a spiritual exercise that calls us to constant purgation of ourselves, conversion. And secondly, is that he was also in leadership. So he studied canon law. So you get someone who understands how the Catholic Church works, the origin of the law, the spirit of the law, and how to implement the law in a merciful way, but also, if need be, how to implement the law in a very strong way. Because, we live in at a time in the world when there are many people who like to water down the message or to change it. So I think he will be someone who will be strong in promoting Christian wisdom, Christian teaching, Catholic teaching. And finally, I think the choice of a name is very symbolic because he chose the name Leo. The last Pope, Leo the 13th, was a Pope who in the Catholic Church is regarded as the father of Catholic social teaching, that is the social justice tradition. He published the document that everyone quotes, the Workers' Charter, Rerum Novarum, which translates to say, on the new things happening in the world. You're talking about the late 19th century. He also, Pope Leo the 13th, was the one who finally put the death nail on slavery, because he published that powerful document in Plurimis in 1888, where he required that no Catholic anywhere should hold slaves anymore, especially in Brazil where they were still holding slaves. Then Leo the 13th went ahead and then published Catholice Ecclesia, another document, again, outlawing the enslavement of people, all forms of exploitation and oppression, and to actually make sure that this is implemented, Pope Leo XIII gave his own family fortune to support missionary work in Africa and support Cardinal Lafigeri, who was the founder of the Society of African Mission, to support the anti-slavery movement, the missionary movement in Africa, and the introduction of Catholic education and the building of Catholic hospitals, and to improve the quality of the life of people. So really, if Pope Leo, as he has done, has chosen Leo as a model, therefore it is telling us something, that he will promote missionary work, he will promote dialogue, and Pope Leo XIII also was someone who promoted democracy, not autocracy or dictatorship. So this is a pope who will support, amidst the rising extremism in the world, amidst poor governance in the world, because it seems the world is suffering from a lot of bad leaders all over the place, that he will speak truth to power. He will stand up for the poor. He will also promote Catholic intellectual tradition to create some form of rational foundation and justification for belief, which I think the world needs to say, why should we believe in God? Why should we love one another? So it's not enough to just preach about it. We can also, I think, under Pope Leo XIV, we will find a more robust engagement in defending these important developments of important foundations of or what we call the deposit of the faith and the truth in the Catholic Church.
Okay, we understand that Pope Leo XIV is a bishop maker. So how does Pope Leo's background as a bishop maker influence expectations of future episcopal appointments?
I think that he was not a bishop maker, if I have to correct that. He was brought in 2 years ago to head the dicastery for bishop. So yes, he recommended and vetted candidates for the bishopric in the Catholic Church. And I think that would have given him a very privileged insight into the challenges that local churches are having, and as well as the opportunities. He was giving him a very global understanding of Catholicism, not only about making bishop, but he was also the person who helped to understand, receive reports from the dioceses about how they are doing, what they are doing, and the challenges that they were facing. So the missionary work of the church, he was at the center of it, advising Pope Francis. He was one of Pope Francis's closest advisors within the last 2 years. And Pope Francis literally handpicked him from a rural Peruvian diocese to come to Rome in order to serve as this very important, one of the most important offices in the Roman Curia. So I think that obviously the lessons he learned from there, even though it was a very short stint, will help him. But because he was also, before he was made a bishop and sent to Peru, he was the head of the Augustinian religious order in the whole world. So in that position, he traveled to all the 5 continents. So giving him, again, a very important privileged insight to see how the world functions. And it was in that position, in that responsibility, that he developed the cross-cultural and intercultural qualities. He understood now Catholicism, the universality of Catholicism. He understood the challenges. And it's not easy to find someone who is able to speak multiple languages, a polyglot, but it came with the territory, because as the general in Rome, he had to go to different parts of the world: French, Italian, Spanish, English, Swahili. You know, I see some of our colleagues who are sharing the pictures of him just a few months ago. He was in Kenya. So he's widely traveled, and I think the world is not a strange place for him. So this will be a pope who I think gets it. He's not someone he's going to be, you know, you want to tell him about Nigeria, he's been there. You want to tell him about Kenya, he's been there. So that's what I would say in terms of his exposure to the world.
Pope Francis enacted a range of reforms and allowed debates on certain topics like women orientation and, you know, inclusion of the LGBT community into the church. And ahead of the conclave, some cardinals called for opportunity with Francis' vision of greater openness and fairness, and others said they would love to revert to the old traditional way. So could Pope Leo XIV's leadership redefine the Church's stance on climate change, social justice, and global inequality?
Yeah, I think that we have to be careful in terms of the Catholic Church. The Pope is not actually authorized by God or within the laws of the Church to change the doctrines of the Church. The Pope is, from the biblical time, what the mandate Jesus gave the Pope is to uphold the faith and morals, to strengthen his brothers and sisters in the faith that was once received by the saints. So I think it would be wrong to just imagine that a pope will just wave a magic wand and everything changes. No, he is being asked and he will take the oath to uphold the teachings and traditions of the Catholic Church. Now, the way those traditions and teachings functions today is open to understanding how the world functions. I think that is always the challenge. So it's not about changing doctrines, but rather presenting the doctrines in new ways so as to meet the changing time. So one of the credits, among others, we give to Pope Francis is that he opened the church up for this conversation that we call synod or synodality. And there is an important document that was produced from this consultation of all the Catholic faithful throughout the world. Those decisions and the ongoing study, some of the issues you mentioned about sexual orientation, about marriage, about women in the church, these are topics that are being studied as we speak by research groups from all over the world. For each of these, there were 10 items that were identified as contentious issues that couldn't be dealt with within just 1 month of the meeting of all the delegates from all over the world. So I think that Pope Leo, who was part of this synod, who saw, listened, and who must have, he's heading one of the study groups, by the way. So the one that is confined under the dicastery who he was heading on to just today. Now, what it means is that he's not just going to come and change it, because he cannot. The Pope cannot change any doctrine. He has to take what he received and then find a way of translating and transmitting that to the world today.
I understand that Pope Leo XIV has spent part of his life in Peru being a missionary. How might Pope Leo XIV's missionary experience in Peru shape his approach to global Catholic leadership?
Yeah, I think that one of the other interesting things about Peru is that Peru is the place, the birthplace of the founder of liberation theology, the recently deceased Gustavo Gutierrez. And Pope Leo XIV was familiar. He was also smelted in the furnace of liberation theology. Liberation theology is a brand of theology, if you like, for lack of a better word, that says, how can you say to a poor person, God loves you, if you don't translate that love into concrete action? So it is an approach to religiosity and spirituality that emphasizes reflecting on people's experience and then responding action to that experience, not with wishful thinking or just platitude, but with concrete action that can help change the situation. Because Jesus Christ, when he was on earth, he was a change maker. He transformed the lives of those who came in contact with him. Therefore, being among the peasants in Peru, the poor people, seeing also the crisis of politics, not only in Peru, but the whole of Latin America. And again, being in Rome as he was for many years as a general for the Augustinian, it will affect him profoundly. It will influence one, his missionary approach will be respectful, will be open to hearing from the other, not talking down on them, not imposing things on them. He will be culturally sensitive to the asymmetrical power relations that existed, especially in some brand of missionary work in Latin America and in Africa, that did not respect the agency of African cultures and traditions and spirituality, that tried to designate our ancestors as pagans and brand them as unbelievers. He is aware of some of the great missionaries who respected and reverenced the traditions of people in order to help to approach them closely, like St. Augustine, his patron saint, did, which was to look at the footprints of God in people's cultural and spiritual history, because the seed of God's love and God's word is implanted at the center of every culture. And what Christianity does is not to obliterate what is there, but the grace that is brought through Christianity builds on this nature, transforms it in order that it will become instruments for advancing the mission of God, which is to liberate, heal, save, teach, and restore creation to its original design, as designed by God. So I think that we're getting a pope who will be a listening pope, a pope who will be a caring pope, a pope who will understand a hurting world, and who, from his missionary experience, will help us to advance the mission of the church, the mission of God, through a humble and respectful approach, not talking down on other people or just criticizing other people, thinking that we are the best thing that ever happened to the world. He saw in his talk speech, he said, we will commit ourselves to dialogue with the world.
Okay, thank you so much, Reverend Father Ilo. It was amazing having this conversation with you. And we really do hope that this new elected Pope is going to beat our expectations, not just meet up with the expectations, but also beat our expectations. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go on a short break, and when we are back, we'll have a regulars, autograph, chat box, and the rest displayed to us. To stay with us.
We are local.
We are right now with the wife of the man that was...
Why the main market is in chaos. People are...
We are national.
Those in support of this motion as amended, say aye. Aye.
We have taken the view by default.
We are international.
Israeli airstrikes.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.
Peace be with all you. Beloved brothers and sisters, this is the first greeting of the risen Christ, the Good Shepherd, who gave his life for God's flock. I too would like this greeting of peace to enter your hearts, to reach your families, to all people, wherever they may be, to all peoples, to all the earth. Peace be with you. We still keep in our ears that weak but always courageous voice of Pope Francis, who blessed Rome. Allow me to follow up on that same blessing. God loves us, God loves you all, and evil will not prevail. We are all in God's hands. Therefore, without fear, united, hand in hand with God and each other, let us go forward. Help us too, then each other to build bridges, with dialogue, with encounter, uniting us all to be one people, always in peace. Thank you to Pope Francis. We must seek together how to be a missionary church, a church that builds bridges and dialogue, is always open to receive as this square, with open arms, to all who need our charity, our presence, dialogue, love. And if you allow me also a word and a greeting to everyone, in particular to my beloved Church of Chiclayo in Peru, where a faithful people accompanied my bishop, and shared my faith. To all of you brothers and sisters of Rome, of Italy, of all over the world, we want to be a synodal church, a church which walks, a church which always looks for peace, always looks for charity, always looks to be close, especially to those who suffer. We pray together for this new mission, for the whole of the church, for the peace in the world. And let's ask for this special grace of Maria, our Mother.
We have a Pope. So we thank God for the election of Cardinal Robert Prevost, who has taken the name of Pope Leo XIV. It's a beautiful day in the life of the Catholic Church and in the life of every person on earth, a day of joy and thanksgiving. Today, the Church, guided by the Spirit of God, has elected a new Pope, the 266th successor of St. Peter. I'm delighted to welcome Pope Leo XIV and honored to pledge my filial love and obedience to our new Holy Father. So as we know, our new Pope is from America, from Chicago. He knows Latin America, which is very important to all of us in Los Angeles. He has been a missionary in Peru, serving for 8 years as the Bishop of Chiclayo. He also has a keen understanding of the global church from his work in the Vatican Dicastery for Bishops.
Again, to have the Pope from the United States of America, that's a great honor. That's a great honor.
First, I would like to share a message from Secretary Marco Rubio following the election of a new Pope and the first Pope from the United States. Quote, I extend my heartfelt congratulations to His Holiness Pope Leo XIV on his election as the 267th successor to St. Peter. This is a moment of profound significance for the Catholic Church, offering renewed hope and continuity amid the 2025 Jubilee year to over 1 billion faithful worldwide. The papacy carries a sacred and solemn responsibility. Jeanette and I are united in prayer for His Holiness. May the Holy Spirit impart wisdom, strength, and grace as He shepherds the Church. The United States looks forward to deepening our enduring relationship with the Holy See, with the first American pontiff.
Very interesting, an American Pope, first time in the history of the Church. So our prayers are with our new Holy Father, Leo XIV.
I do believe that Pope Leo XIV is going to serve with obviously great faith. He's a very humble, a very kind person, and someone who really does look to the Lord for guidance in all that he does. He's a very prayerful and spiritual man, and he's going to take that sense of God's love and do all that he can to care for all of God's children, to care for all of us.
When he was named in Chicago, at that moment I looked outside here in Chicago, the sun came out. The sun came out. So someone would say, what a coincidence the sun came out. A coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. A coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. Now, one burning question I have is the fact that the Pope Leo XIV, or Cardinal then, Robert Prevost, was born in Chicago on the South Side.
Very excited. An American who's lived in Latin America. I never thought in my life I'd see an American Pope. And when they said American, I wondered if it was Cardinal Dolan, but I guess not.
I think that a good
a good signal of how it has been received so far, at least, is the crowd that was immediately there at the Vatican and when he was announced, and getting to see how warmly he was received by the individuals there. I thought it was very promising, and I think that Pope Leo is going to have a tremendous tenure as Pope.
Recreating the Pope today is very important for the Catholic and Christian worlds. It was very complicated because sometimes I fear how the figure might turn out. So, in this case, I am Christian, of course, and I want my final work to resemble the person or, relay, the importance of the figure. It's an homage to the Pope, of course. I believe that creating Pope Schnitzel is to honor him and to give the importance that this very important international figure deserves, as I said, for the Catholic world. We congratulate Cardinal Robert Prevost on his election as the new Pope. We hope that under the leadership of the new Pope, the Vatican will continue to engage in dialogue with China in a constructive spirit, have in-depth communication on international issues of mutual concern, jointly promote the continuous improvement of relations with China, and contribute to world peace, stability, development and prosperous development.
The conclave essentially is a closed-door meeting in which Roman Catholic cardinals who are under the age of 80 elect the new pope from among their own numbers, okay? In order to get into a conclave, you have to be a cardinal. In order to get into a conclave, you have to be under 80 years old. And from one of those people inside that room in the Sistine Chapel, they will elect the Pope with a 2/3 majority.
Sancte Mater, ora pro Sanctissimum et Ladere, ora pro Sancte Mattia, ora pro Sancte Luca, ora pro Sancte Ioannes Paule.
Sede vacante means empty seat. The sede vacante is the period between the death of one pope and the election of another. Right now, there is no pope. So the seat of St. Peter's, as it is called, or the see of St. Peter's, but usually the seat of St. Peter's, is empty. No one is sitting on the throne. What happens inside is that each of the cardinals writes on a slip of paper which says in Latin something along the lines, I choose as Pope so-and-so. They write it down in their own handwriting, and they are encouraged to masquerade their handwriting. Then these votes are counted, and if there are enough, a new Pope has been elected. If there are not enough, they go to another vote. So when the cardinals have reached the decision, the cardinal who has been elected says, yes, I accept my election as Pope, as successor of St. Peter. The ballots on which the cardinals have written the name of the new Pope, or the names of all the people that they have elected, are burned after each vote. Then it's added with an additive, a chemical additive. They're put into a stove. A chemical additive is added, so it would be black for we have not elected a Pope, white, we have elected a Pope. Years ago, they used to